Return the $40,000 your son stole, or don't come back, Dad warned, holding the door. My sister smirked. My daughter saw him near the safe. We all know it was him. I just smiled, placed the bank records and her car lease on the table. 5 minutes later, her husband walked out, and she. Okay, so listen, there are moments in life that just snap everything into focus. Moments where years of quiet sacrifice, of being the one who always picks up the pieces, finally hit a breaking point. For me, that breaking point wasn't just about money. It was about the crushing injustice of seeing my own son become a scapegoat for someone else's lies, and I knew, right then, that things were about to change, whether my family liked it or not. My name's Kevin. I'm 34, and I work as a pathologist, the guy who steps in when the silence gets too loud and the facts have to speak for themselves. In my family, I've always been the background guy. You know the type? I fix things, I hold doors, I say it's fine, when it absolutely is not. If you pictured my family in a photo, my sister Alyssa would be front and center, perfectly lit, perfectly smiling, and I'd be that blurry figure just behind her, holding everyone's coats. I have a son, Eli. He's 13, quiet like me, obsessed with chess and old computer parts. His hair has a mind of its own. Mornings, we share a stale muffin in the car, and he often reminds me to breathe when my phone starts going crazy. Divorce meant 50-50 custody and a never-ending list of things I'm supposed to remember. Forms, sneakers, lunch cards, all the little details. Work, for me, is clinical, precise. In the morgue, everything is labeled, measured, recorded. There's a strict chain of custody, and I love that. You can always prove where something came from, who touched it, what happened next. There are no golden children in there, just cause and effect. But at home? Oh, at home, fact slide. Alyssa, she shines. She's 2 years older than me, a marketing manager with blindingly white teeth, a shiny SUV, and even shinier opinions. Growing up, my mom framed all of Alyssa's spelling bee ribbons. My science fair medals? They ended up in a junk drawer, stuffed with batteries and old cords. That drawer still exists, by the way. My dad still calls it the junk drawer. I learned to laugh along, to agree that the things I worked for, the things I achieved, were just miscellaneous. I told myself I wasn't bitter. I really tried to believe it. I worked nights, paid off debts that weren't even mine, took my turns, and then took the turns my sister skipped. She'd call me Kevy when she wanted something, like I was 6 again and she was being cute. And it always worked. Sunday dinner was a family ritual, even after my marriage fell apart. Mom would make roast with carrots. Dad would try to referee everyone with a beer in his hand. Alyssa would show up late and loud, making a grand entrance. Me? I'd arrive with paper towels, a salad, and the unspoken knowledge that I'd be leaving with someone's list of chores or favors. But this particular Sunday, the air felt thick, almost brittle, as Eli and I walked up the driveway. The old oak tree cast long, ominous shadows over the minivan. My stomach churned, for reasons I couldn't name. Eli nudged me. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I lied. Let's just smile. We stepped inside. Mom barely looked up from the counter. Alyssa was already in the kitchen, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line, her posture dialed to courtroom. Her husband, Brad, hovered like her personal bailiff. Their daughter, Kendall, 9 years old, swung her legs from a bar stool, watching us all like a TV show. Dad wasn't sitting. He stood in the living room doorway, one hand on the frame, like a bouncer at a club. Return the $40,000 your son took, or stay out, he said, his voice flat, holding the door. Eli sucked in a sharp breath. I just blinked. It didn't compute. The words sounded like they were coming from a radio in another room. Alyssa chimed in. My daughter saw him near the safe. We all agreed. I looked at Eli. He'd gone utterly pale. In my head, I reached for a clipboard, for a sense of order, for facts, but there was nothing. No chain of custody, just an accusation thrown like a brick. Dad? I said slowly, my voice feeling strangely detached. What's safe? Mom started wiping a spot on an already gleaming counter. Don't make this harder, Kevin. Kendall's legs swung faster. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Brad sniffed, like he smelled something burning. Eli whispered, so low I almost missed it. I didn't. Not here. My voice was shaking now. We stood there, half in, half out, like a test. The house smelled like roast and lemon cleaner, and something else, something cheap. Fear maybe, or the cloying sweetness of someone's lie. Say you'll bring it back, Alyssa said, her voice bright and firm, like she was closing a sale on a ship. Then we can eat. I didn't answer. 1,000 small, heavy memories started to rise in my throat, like sand. From the living room, Aunt Marie's voice drifted out, sugary sweet, and utterly devastating. He always was a strange one. The first trigger, for me, wasn't the dollar amount. It was that line. Flat, casual, like I'd been a problem for years and everyone had just been waiting for permission to say it out loud. Now, this safe wasn't new. Dad kept it in his bedroom closet, behind his flannels. A black box with a keypad and a physical key, just in case. It held passports, bonds, the house title, Mom's ring when she used too much lotion and worried it might slip off. And cash. Always cash. Banks fail. Dad would always say. Cash doesn't. He loved to tell the story about the time his bank put a hold on his paycheck. 14 days, he'd bellow, like the number had personally insulted him. Never again. So, he kept envelopes of cash in that safe, with dates written on them. He'd shown Alyssa the inside, like it was a museum exhibit. He never showed me. I learned to stand in the hall and pretend I wasn't looking. Over the years, money would quietly disappear from that safe for Alyssa's emergencies. The daycare messed up. Brad's job was in transition. The SUV tires were a surprise. Mom would say it was temporary, then lay out dessert. Dad would grumble, just enough so he didn't look soft. And I drive home with leftovers and wonder how I was going to cover my own bills. I picked up extra shifts. I said no to vacations. I said yes to, I'll pay you back Friday. Even when I knew Friday was a fairy tale. My ex-wife used to call me predictable and safe, and it always sounded like a complaint. She left with a guy who called himself a fixer. He fixed nothing. I fixed the custody schedule. I fixed Eli's trust in adults. Alyssa liked to call me frugal and laugh, like I was some sitcom character who kept receipts in a jar. The truth was far less cute. My checking account had a permanent bruise. I had 1 suit for court, 2 shirts for work, and a system of rods in my closet that felt like a lab. Blue, gray, black. It wasn't an aesthetic, it was triage. The humiliations were small, constant. Kev, can you Venmo me $60? Kev, can you pick up Kendall? We're swamped. Kev, can you talk to Dad? He's being stubborn about the roof. I said yes. Every yes made the next yes easier to demand. When Eli was 10, he asked why we didn't have a fun fund, like Kendall's family. I told him the truth. We were building slowly. I could feel my face heat with the shame of being so honest. He just patted my arm. Okay, he said. We can still make pancakes. I watched my sister buy a new car, tied with a bow. I watched Dad slip her an envelope and say, don't tell your mother. I watched Brad drink craft beer, explaining startups, and using words like burn rate, while he burned through other people's patience. He called me Doc, but he said it like a joke, like I just had a quirky hobby. Kev, you're so lucky, Alyssa said once. You don't have to care what you wear. It sounded like a compliment, but it felt like a gentle kind of eraser. When Kendall turned 9, Alyssa threw a party with a rented unicorn and a balloon arch that scraped the ceiling. Eli and I stood by the cooler. Could we get pizza after? He asked. I checked my account, did the math. We could. We would. I put my hands on his shoulders and felt his bones. He was growing. Growth costs money. Growth is relentless. 2 months before this Sunday dinner fiasco, Alyssa had called me, crying. We're drowning, she sobbed. Brad's equity won't vest until Q4. We made a bridge loan from Dad's safe, and he's being a jerk about it. I pressed the phone between my shoulder and cheek while I scraped a tray in the morgue. There are just some calls you can't pause. Can you talk to him? You're good with him. I'm good at not yelling, I'd said. That's not the same. Please, she pleaded, just smooth it. I'll square with you. I smoothed it. I sat with Dad on the porch and listened to him explain that this wasn't how he was raised, that his father would have thrown him out, that he wasn't raising a pack of beggars. I nodded, reminded him Alyssa was stressed. He fumed, then softened, then fished for the key to the safe like he always did. Just this once, he'd said, which, of course, meant not just this once. And now, on this Sunday, he stood with his hand on the door and told me to return $40,000 my son allegedly took. The accusation landed like a slap, because it made no sense in our world. My son didn't go into their room without permission. He didn't touch things that weren't his. He said, sir, to Dad, even when Dad was wrong. They picked him because he was defenseless. Because he was mine. Because if I was the blur, then my kid was the ghost behind the blur. Easier to blame than to stop the bleeding. Where did you get 40 grand? I asked, holding onto my only card, common sense. Don't play dumb. Alyssa snapped. Dad counted it last week. Today it's gone. Who has the key? I pressed. We all do, she said, and then she realized what she'd revealed and backpedaled. Dad keeps it, but we know where it is. That's not the point. Did you call the police? I asked. Mom made a face like I'd farted in church. This is family, Kevin. Right. Family, to them, meant no police, no paperwork, no chain of custody. Just consensus. Family meant we all agreed, counted as evidence. Family meant Kendall's. I saw Eli near the closet, trumped Eli's, I didn't do it. Because Kendall was a certified witness and Eli was the boy who fixed old laptop chargers and kept to himself. I looked at Eli. His mouth trembled. He didn't cry. He just looked wounded in a way that would scab overall wrong if I let it. Something in me started to harden. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was resolve. I've seen bones callous around breaks. It felt like that. Okay, I said. We're leaving. Dad's jaw ticked. You come back with the money. Alyssa smiled, like she'd already won. This doesn't have to be dramatic, Kev. As I turned, Aunt Marie's voice followed me out again, sugar-coated and sharp. He was always different. I drove Eli home in silence. At a red light, he said. Chess after dinner. Like normal might still be available if we just asked for it quietly. Yes, I said. But first, I'm going to do something. What? I gripped the wheel. I'm going to collect the facts. The big scene wasn't a holiday dinner. It was 2 nights later at Mom and Dad's because Alyssa texted a deadline like a debt collector. Wednesday, 7 p.m. We need resolution. She sent it to a group text. Kendall even added a unicorn sticker because she's 9 and the world is stickers. I asked Eli if he wanted to come. He shook his head. No, they don't see me, Dad, he said quietly. I'll mess up the picture. It hurt because it was true. I picked up a banker's box on the way. Inside were bank statements, printed and highlighted. I'd pulled them in my kitchen, with a cup of cold coffee and a hand that just wouldn't stop shaking. I called my own bank, Dad's credit union, the leasing company, and customer service reps who sounded bored until I said the word fraud. I requested proofs, timelines, transfers. I even printed Alyssa's car lease, because she'd once sent me a photo of the contract for advice and forgotten that advice leaves a trail. At 7:04 p.m., I walked in. Dad stood again, like a bouncer. Mom hovered. Alyssa and Brad were on the couch, a visible distance between them, like a crack in a tile. Kendall worked on a tablet in the corner. Aunt Marie had brought apple pie and a healthy dose of judgment. I set the box on the coffee table. Before we do anything, I said, my voice steady, we're going to do this with evidence. Alyssa rolled her eyes. Oh my God, Kevin. Shush, Dad said. He liked paperwork when it looked official. I pulled out the first folder. Here's the transaction log from the Safe's bank bag. Last 3 withdrawals were July 2nd, August 19th, and September 30th. The cash counted at those times was logged by Dad and signed by you. I looked at him. You signed it, Dad. I keep notes, he said defensively. I'm not a caveman. Good, I said. Because the sum total at the end of September, before the alleged theft, was $12,300. Not 40. Silence. Alyssa blinked first. Dad must have miscounted. I didn't, he snapped. I laid down the second folder. Car lease for a 2024 RX 350, I said. Signed by Alyssa and Brad in June. Monthly payment, $912. Down payment, $12,000. Paid in cash. You sent me this for advice. You texted, is this a good idea? I replied, it's not my business. That was my mistake. Brad bristled. What does this have to do with your money? Because on July 2nd, I said, sliding over a copy of the note Dad had made. Alyssa withdrew $10,000 from the safe. I held up the July statement from Dad's credit union, showing a cash deposit of the same amount into Alyssa's account. Then on August 19th, $5,000. Then on September 30th, $3,000. I set down 3 printed screenshots of Alyssa's Venmo to the dealership, with cringeworthy captions like, car stuff, LOL. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. She looked small. Alyssa stood up. This is ridiculous. Brad stood too. We're done, he said suddenly, his voice clipped. He grabbed his keys. I told you not to drag me into your family's weird cash obsession. He looked at me like I'd built this whole situation. You people are insane. He walked out, the door thudding behind him. Kendall flinched. Her tablet screen timed out. Alyssa's hand shook. Wait, she said weakly. Brad. She took a step toward the door, then stopped, trapped by the room. I breathed. My heart didn't race. It felt like it slowed, like the body does when it's ready for surgery. I reached for the last folder. There's also the security camera. Dad frowned. We don't have a camera. You do, I said calmly. Remember when the neighbor's kid was sneaking into your garage for the bike pump? You installed a motion cam in the hallway by your bedroom door. You forgot about it because the notifications annoyed you, but the app didn't forget. I turned my phone around. A still frame. Alyssa on September 30th, at 2:18 p.m., stepping out of the bedroom. Envelope in hand. Timestamped. The angle was unflattering. Truth ofteness. Alyssa's chin trembled. That was for Mom's ring cleaning. The envelope was labeled emergency. You took it, I said. You texted me that night. I pulled out a final printout. Can you spot me $200 for Kendall's art camp? We're tight this month. Dad sank down. The beer in his hand looked incredibly heavy. So no, I said, my voice low. Eli didn't take $40,000. There wasn't $40,000 in there to take. You took it in chunks and didn't keep track. And when Dad counted and panicked, you pointed at my son. Aunt Marie made a small sound, like a kettle finally clicking off. Well, she said. I looked at each of them. This isn't about revenge, I said. This is about closure. You're not going to say Eli's name that way again. You're not going to make me the junk drawer for your mistakes. The next time money goes missing, you can call the police, like people do when they think a crime occurred. But you won't call me, and you won't blame my kid. Alyssa whispered, I'm sorry, but it sounded like a word she'd never had to use for real. I shook my head. Not to me. To him. Mom started to cry softly. Dad stared at the camera still on my phone like it had personally betrayed him. I put the folders back in the box. We're done here, I said. If you want to speak to me again, you can start with an apology to Eli and a written agreement about that safe. Chain of custody, key control, signatures. If that sounds cold, remember who made it necessary. No one stopped me. No one called after me. The only voice that followed was Alyssa's, small and breaking. Brad? She called into the hallway. But the house held its breath and did not answer. They tried to rewind it the next day. People always try to rewind after someone's hit stop. At 8:12 a.m., Mom called. I let it ring out. At 8:14, she texted, breakfast. At 8:20, You're being dramatic. At 9:03, Alyssa is fragile. At 9:50, a photo of the roast leftovers. The messages stacked up like coupons I wouldn't use. Dad waited until evening. Come over. We'll sort it out. Don't be stupid. I sat at our kitchen table with Eli, a list of things to buy spread out. Milk, detergent, a birthday card for a classmate named Liam. Eli tapped a pawn against the chessboard. Do you think they'll say sorry? He asked. I don't know, I said. But we're going to stop standing in doorways waiting for permission. He moved his pawn. Check, he said, a shy smile peeking out. We built new routines that didn't have them at the center. It felt both wrong and incredibly clean, like finally rearranging a kitchen drawer and throwing out all the bent forks. I changed our grocery store. We started having breakfast at a diner on Wednesdays, because it used to be Sunday with my parents, and we needed a new anchor. The waitress learned Eli's order: scrambled eggs, sourdough, hot chocolate. She called him Professor because of his glasses. He absolutely glowed. At work, I was steadier than usual. I stopped checking my phone between cases. I stopped answering calls I didn't want to answer. My coworkers noticed I wasn't the guy who would cover a shift, no questions asked. It felt like heresy. It felt like oxygen. Alyssa's texts toggled between apology and attack, the way a person toggles between hot and cold water when they can't find the right mix. I was stressed. You blindsided me. Family shouldn't air dirty laundry. You humiliated me. Are you happy? Can we just reset? We're not perfect. Then, a photo of Kindle with a crooked art project and the caption, "She misses you." I stared at the gluey paper tree and felt the old tug, the familiar pressure. Kindle didn't do this. Adults did. I typed and deleted. I tried again. When you apologize to Eli, we can talk. No reply. Brad was quiet, which was loud in its own way. Through a neighbor, we learned he'd gone to stay with a friend. Alyssa posted filtered stories about private growth, and not all journeys are meant to be understood. The SUV made it into 3 of the posts, gleaming like a trophy with captions about grit. I scrolled, then set my phone face down and washed the dishes by hand, because the rhythm calmed me. Dad sent one last blast. You went too far. Your sister's marriage is none of your business. I stared at the screen. I pictured the door frame and his hand on it. Gatekeeping dignity. I was tired. Eli's name is my business. I typed. Your safe is your business. Keep it that way. A week passed. 2. The calls thinned. When Mom texted, it was practical. Aunt Jean's birthday is Saturday. Like we could pretend nothing had split. We didn't go. Eli and I played chess on the porch and listened to the neighbor mow his lawn. The sun slid across our building like it always did, whether we were in or out of anyone's favor. Then the knock. Saturday, 4 p.m. I opened the door to Alyssa, standing on my mat. Hair messy, eyes rimmed red. No glitter, no script. She held a grocery bag like a shield. Hi, she said. Can I come in? Eli looked at me from the couch. I nodded, and he slipped to his room, closing the door with soft loyalty. Alyssa stood in my kitchen, clutching the bag. I brought muffins, she said, like she'd stolen the idea of kindness from a movie. I waited. Silence sat with us. She crumpled first. I messed up, she said, her voice breaking. I panicked about the money, and I used Kindle, and I blamed Eli because I knew you'd fix it, and I hate myself. She swallowed. Brad left. He says I make everything someone else's fault. He says I never learned to carry my own weight. He says I'm cruel. I thought he was being dramatic. Now I think he might be right. I let it sit. I didn't hug her. I held the moment steady, like a tech holds a light. I need you to apologize to Eli, I said. Specific. No if. No but. She nodded. Quick. I will. I already told Kindle we were wrong. She cried. I told her grown-ups get it wrong big sometimes. She asked if we're bad people. You say we did a bad thing, I said. And then you show her how you fix it. Alyssa wiped her eyes. Dad won't talk to me. He says I embarrassed him. That's not my part, I said. You and Dad have your own drawer to open. She managed a wet laugh. You and your drawers. They're useful, I said softly. We called Eli out. Alyssa turned to him, hands shaking, and did the thing I asked. No ifs, no buts. I'm sorry, Eli. I lied about you. I knew it wasn't true, and I said it anyway because it made my life easier for a minute. That was wrong. I will never do that again. Eli looked at her for a long time. He's 13 and carries a scale in his chest that weighs what people say. He nodded once. Okay, he said. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. It was a receipt. After Alyssa left, the messages from Dad changed tone. Shorter. Your sister came crying. You made a spectacle. We don't do police. The undertone was always the same. Keep the door where I want it. I wrote back once. Boundaries aren't spectacles, they're rules. He didn't respond. On Sunday at 6 p.m., my phone lit up with missed calls. Mom, Dad, Aunt Marie. Then one last text from Mom. We're eating. Your plate is here. I stared at it. My palm itched with the old reflex to jump when summoned. I set the phone down. Eli and I went to the diner. The waitress brought hot chocolate and winked at his chessboard. On the TV above the counter, a game played to a loud room. People cheered for people who couldn't hear them. Eli said, You ever think about how many people shout at a screen expecting it to help? I laughed into my coffee, and it felt like a full, easy breath. The next week, Dad called to say he'd installed a new safe. Different code, no spare key under the flannel. Sign-in sheet, too. He grunted, like I'd forced him into paperwork jail. Good, I said. Treat it like it matters. He paused. You always think you're better than us, he said. I never did, I said quietly. I just stopped letting you be worse to me. He hung up. There were losses. The family chat got quieter. Invitations stopped arriving with emojis and started arriving with formal times, as if we were just neighbors. Aunt Marie posted a meme about ungrateful children. I didn't get tagged. At first, the silence hurt. Then it felt like a room with a window finally propped open. Air moved. We built our life with small choices. Eli joined a school chess club, and I volunteered to drive 2 kids home after meets because I liked hearing them talk about gambits in the back seat. We went to the thrift store and found a jacket that made him stand taller. I replaced the broken desk lamp. I got my first good night's sleep in months. Every mundane fix felt like a luxury purchase. Some nights, the anger still bubbled. I'd think of Dad's hand on the door, and my teeth would clench. I'd picture Kendall's small voice repeating something an adult told her to say. I'd feel the unfairness flare hot and stupid. And then I'd put it back. Not revenge. I'd tell myself in the mirror, like I was rinsing after brushing. Closure. When Alyssa texted updates. Brad is still gone. We're selling the SUV. I didn't toss confetti. I said, I hope you're okay. And I meant it in the grown-up sense. Okay. As in you learn. She asked for a budget template. I sent it, and then I didn't follow up. I am not a coach. I am her brother, and my battery is finite. The best marker of change wasn't a speech or an event. It was a Tuesday night at 9:30 when I realized I hadn't thought about the safe once all day. That used to be my quiet hobby, worrying about other people's money. It was gone. I went to bed. I slept. The final scene was quiet. A Thursday in September, a month after it all broke. Mom asked to meet at the diner. No group text. She came in an old sweater, hands cupped around her mug. I miss you, she said. I miss Eli. I miss not being scared around you. Scared? I asked. Scared you'll hold up a mirror. Scared you won't make it easy. I'm not making it easy anymore, I said. I'm making it honest. She nodded. We made you the problem because you didn't yell. A tap on her cup. Your father says the sign-in sheet is dumb. He still uses it. Good. Dumb things work. He won't say sorry. I noticed. I am, she whispered. I'm sorry. Thank you. Tell Eli. Not me. Him. I will. She gave a small, pained smile. You were always different. For once, it didn't cut. After she left, Eli slid into the booth. He'd been watching pancakes being made at the counter. Was that okay? He asked. It was. We don't need everything. Just enough. He nodded. Do we still play on Sundays? Yeah, I said, but we'll pick our own time. I'm not riding for revenge. No victory dance. Just a line. I won't step back. No one points at my kid to make life easier. If something goes missing, use the sign-in sheet. If words are said, own them. Being different kept us visible. My name is Kevin. I cut through noise for a living. Now I do it when needed at home. The moral's simple. I won't pay for lies or lower the bar for peace. This isn't revenge. It's closure. It's a door I hold open for me and my kid. If you want in, the price is simple. Tell the truth. Respect the boundary. Bring your receipts.